Barbershop Male Mentoring Initiative podcast. I'm Freddie Yake, your host, and I'm happy to have a guest here that I consider a mentor. And speaking of mentorship, I want to talk to you about something that's very important to me. I think mentorship is something that we've been talking about a long time, but many don't know there's a level of mentorship that expires, that transitions to sponsorship. And I know you may be wondering, what's the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? Simply put, a mentor is someone who takes the time to be with you. They take the time to share their ideas with you, and they take time to listen and hopefully inspire you. But a sponsor is someone who takes all those things, but they have a privilege that you don't have, and they share it with you. They share that privilege because you don't have to work as hard as they may have, but because they care for you and they want to make sure that you have it, they make sure that they'll share that with you and they stay there with you until you get it. And I think today I have someone who is not only a mentor, but has been a sponsor in my life. And I can't wait to dive into him. And I want to welcome Mr. Mike Dilts to the Barbershop podcast. You like that? Huh? Thanks so much for being with us. How you doing?
It's great. Monday morning to open up with Fred Yake. Are you kidding me?
Listen.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, some say it's even better than coffee. I don't know about that.
I need caffeine anyway, but it's good. Privileged to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. So, Mike, you've done a lot of things around the community being Indianapolis. You've done it with the level of fidelity, you've done it with the level of passion, and a lot of people know you, but I really want to dive in today to talk about how you became who you were, right? There's been a lot of people, I'm sure, that have done great things in life. And whenever they get on stage, they say, I first want to give honor to my basketball coach or somebody, people you would never think about it. And when I think of that, I think of the Hall of Fame speeches that a lot of football players and NBA players give. Right. If this was your Hall of Fame speech, who would you say would help shape your life, and who is the power behind your why?
That's funny, because I've never considered a Hall of Fame speech because I can't think of a Hall of Fame that I'd ever be inducted into. But I think the topic of mentorship, sponsorship, as you've described it, and when you and I talked about it a while back, is a fantastic topic. I think beyond money, beyond all the resources that someone may have, if you can pass on your experiences and your intelligence and things, that there couldn't be a better legacy. Mentorship is what drives us as a society. It drives a successful city, a state, a school, a family. It helps with our decision making and all, and not to go down rabbit trails, but I think that if you did it, Hall of Fame speech, of course. I was really lucky growing up in a family that there were 6 kids, 2 parents that were very loving. And I was also lucky because the position I came in the family, and you and I talked about this before, Fred, so I was number 5 of 6. We were really spread out. An older brother that was 16 years older, an older brother that was 11, 12 years older, sister that was 5 years older, sister 2 years older than myself, and then I had 1. So I was only responsible for 1. I couldn't have handled the other. And then, when you have parents that when I was born, they were in their 40s. So I had loving parents who were in this generation. I had brothers that were in this generation and in this generation, a sister in this generation. And I was just the beneficiary of all those generational things that I learned and from them. So I was in a great spot. So I lucked into that. That was no choice of mine. Of course, I was glad they had me in their 40s because in another one after me, but I was fortunate to grow up in a family that was stable. It was a blue collar family. If you go to our family reunions, there was nobody that went to college. They were farmers and factory workers and all that, but they were all very loving. They were all extremely hardworking, and you learn that. So as I matured and grew up in this great family and a nice neighborhood, you walk to school and all those types of things. It wasn't perfect, because families aren't perfect. But I just had this built-in village in this small house with these 8 people that really affected my life. And they all allowed me into their lives. Being a mentor, I think, is being, you have to be very unselfish because you can't be selfish and be a mentor. You can't keep it to yourself. you've got to be willing to give. And one of the things when you talked about, let's discuss mentor or mentorship, there's a real role for the mentee. And I think I think the mentee has to understand whether it doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or high school kids, the young men that you affect in this space, they have to be open to looking at someone like Fred and Tyler was just in here, and their teachers and peers. You have to be open to mentorship as well. It's a two-way street because it's not just to take.
Yeah.
It's also to give and to listen and be respectful. And the mentors and mentors of the world will pick up on that. You know, you like to coach someone that's a good listener.
Yeah.
You like to coach someone that has a lot of interest.
Right.
So if you're apathetic about that, and it's not about being shy, or you don't have to run out and be the most, outgoing person in the world to be a good mentee. And because there's something you give back to the mentor, and you want the mentor to want to continue to invest time and their knowledge with you. So I want, if there's any lesson I would tell my kids and all the students that you affect here and at your church and your own children, your growing family, is that keep your head on a swivel. Awareness, have your awareness away. You could be mentored in one lecture in one class. You could be mentored by watching the behavior of something in a situation you were in. You could be mentored by just listening at church to someone doing something. It's not like they have to be your counselor and be with you every minute.
Right.
You can pick up things like that, and you can go, I remember this speech that this person gave me. I remember what happened when this happened and how they reacted to it, and I've taken that lesson with me and applied it to my own life. So that's a little bit of a rabbit trail all around. I'm not so sure I even answered your question.
Oh, no,
but I think that I've been the super lucky beneficiary of great mentors and being around people that cared about me, and I cared about them, and so I learned from them. It was great, and you never stop. I mean, I think you have mentors and mentorship throughout your career, throughout your life, and you should always be looking for that. We don't own all the knowledge, that's for sure.
I like how you said a couple of things. Number one, I pulled out of what you said about proximity, your family, your relationships. Every relationship moves at the speed of trust. Right. And you said, not only my family, but where I was placed in my family. That was pretty good because, sibling things and placing or pecking order matters. Because I got a middle child, and that middle child syndrome is real, man. Yeah. But I'm the baby of my family, and I'm like, okay, I learned from my older brothers and sisters' mistakes. They taking care of me. So that's really great because a lot of people don't talk about that. Other thing you said that really mattered to me, and I want to kind of dive into that. You said you never grow old from being a mentor and finding mentees. Yeah. Age is something that is not a prerequisite, and it doesn't expire.
Right, that's fair. Yeah.
Who are your mentors to this day? You don't have to say names or no. You can talk about specifics, but I think it's something I want to pull out because it's beyond a level of quote unquote status. Yeah. And I really would love to kind of unpack that.
Yeah, that's fair. I had let's step outside the family unit because I think that's your first natural mentor, mentee type relationship. And then you get into schools. I think everybody could go through through schools and say, this one jumps out at me. And in my case, it would be a teacher possibly that spent a little more time, understood that I may not have been the most serious student, but I believe I had a pretty good heart, and maybe I needed to learn a little bit different. Mm-hmm. This was way before we diagnosed all these things. And I have two daughters that are resource teachers and are degreed in that. And they have given me all the diagnosis that I never had before. So I have every letters, ADD, ADHD, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I have the old alphabet, okay? And when I was going to school, it was, your disruption, you sit over here. And I had some teachers that understood that and knew how to, I still had a responsibility to not act up in class and do bad things. But I think they learned how to work with me in a way that helped. I think I had coaches that learned how to work with me. I I was not a blessed athlete, and I can I can remember the discussion. The good thing about having an older father, which you're soon to become, and maybe you already are, and soon to become more, is I'm going to sound like 100 years old. We literally, my job was to take the trash out, clean up this, that, and the other every day. And my dad followed me out one time because we actually burned the trash in our alley.
Okay.
And you put the trash over here, the things that would burn, you burn here. So you can imagine trusting your 8 or 9 year old with some matches go out like this. Are you kidding me? It was the best.
It was the best.
I'm building campfires when I'm like second grade. It was awesome. So he came out once because I was probably out there hanging too long. He thought maybe I'd burn the garage down or hurt somebody. And we were talking. I'm like, so I may have been like, I don't know, how old are you in like 4th or 5th grade? So you're like 9 or 10 or something. I don't know. And I'm like, hey, I'm going out for football. And it was one of these pause. And he said, well, let me tell you something, Mike. He said, the tallest Dilts is 5'9". We don't jump high. We don't run fast. Your brother's got a broken elbow from trying to play football. Your other brother hurt his knee. He goes, it was kind of like this. Stick with swimming. And turned around and went back in. I'm like, well, I guess I don't go out for football. He goes, because someday you can be a lifeguard. You may be able to pay your way to college. This, that, and the other. And he was exactly right.
Wow.
Wow. Because I would have got my head taken off. But at that point I was like, you gotta go, and it could be anything. It could be, that was the right person. He was not roll over easy kind of a guy. You know what I mean? He grew up, he didn't have a father. His father died when he was 6 months old. So I'm thinking for a guy that had 6 kids, he kind of figured out how to be a dad in his own way. It wasn't one of those that, there wasn't 100 hugs a day from my dad, okay? It was, you knew where you were, you better stay in line, but I always felt comfortable that, around him, that we were secure in the house if he was in the house. But the long story short, he was pretty direct, and so that was one of those crossroads where I was like, okay, well, I'll just kind of stick with swimming, and I still swim today, and it did help me pay my way through college, and it gave me confidence and allowed me to do something that was good. But you step outside of that, you got the teachers I was talking about. I did have swim coaches that I liked. I had swim coaches that I didn't necessarily like, and you learn from them. But if you have the confidence, you can just not quit and leave. You can just say, I'm going to hang in here despite the attitude that they may bring or the negative environment that they may create, and just fight through it. So I think good mentors help you do that. You just keep plugging and just help you be persistent. I had a great boss when I was between my junior and senior year. So like I said, I was a swimmer. I was a pretty decent swimmer. And I was getting small scholarship offers out there. So I thought, well, that's the ticket for me to go to college. And as I said, no one in my family, no one was against college. And I grew up in blue collar neighborhoods. There was a lot of people that didn't want you to go to college. They're like, you don't want to do that. You don't want a desk job. You don't want to go. And my parents were never like, the beauty of my parents were, they couldn't afford it, but they were not going to stop any of us from living whatever dream we had. And here's what you should do to try to attain that. Maybe a little bit different path. So they never stopped that. So there was the beauty of growing up in that. But I had a guy that I worked for just for a summer job, and it was at a swimming pool, and I was lifeguarding and teaching swim lessons, and he was just finished his master's degree. And I didn't know what a master's degree was from Purdue, and his wife was finishing her pharmacy degree. So they were really intelligent people. I've never seen a guy read more books in my life. Wow. We were workers. And my dad read every newspaper or magazine he could get his hands on, but we didn't sit down and read a lot of books. Just to be perfectly honest with you, you had chores, you had things to do. And I watched this guy's like, he could work and study, and he would pass books on. Here, you should read this. This is good. I'm like, no one ever handed me an adult book and said, you should read this. So I watched the guy worked his tail off, and he finally said, look, swimming ends at 22. Go to get a degree from here. I mean, literally laid out a roadmap and said, here's what you do. Here's the organizations you want to join. Here's where you go. Do this, boom, boom, boom. And I was like, no one had ever given me a roadmap. And the best is, and I think you kind of touched on this with your sponsorship, at least what I gathered from your comments earlier, was not only gave me a roadmap, followed up on it. So I'm a senior, and he's going, how's this going? What are you doing? I get a call every once in a while. And we didn't have cell phones, Every once in a while I get a call, get a note, get a letter. How you doing on this? Stayed in touch. How's it going this season? Remember, that ends at this. Get ready for school. Get a good degree from X. So, I mean, you bump into that. What about that collision? And so I followed him around like a puppy dog all summer. And we worked our tail off. We went, if the job was to do X, he did X plus 2. And I'm like, wow, if you could do this, when you're gonna go on to be an executive at a steel, Inland Steel he was gonna go to work for. And anyway, he was a brilliant guy, hardworking guy, and took an interest and followed up on it. And I'll never forget those lessons. And I'm like, wow, that was awesome, bumping into him at the time. And I couldn't have got that at home because they didn't know what they didn't know.
Absolutely.
Okay? They had never experienced it, so they couldn't tell me what to do. Oh, not at all. And so they couldn't tell me or guide me through an experience they had never experienced. All right? And so we see that today play out, and folks that may not have this, well, you can't expect them to get to A if they don't know how to get to A. So anyway, this person took enough interest to lay out a map for me that was easy for a 17-year-old to follow. And I did, and it was good. It wasn't perfect, but it was good.
That's powerful. That's one thing.
No, that's lucky.
Man, you know what? Proximity matters.
Yeah, it does.
And oftentimes you hear successful people, whether they're here, no matter where, they said, I'm only here because I was at the right place at the right time, right? And a lot of times when you're not at the right place at the right time, other things will follow you. But what I heard you say is that because your parents have taught you the power, you listen, your dad, brutal, you're not gonna be good, but that helped to kind of tell you those ways, because a mentor, if someone who cares about you doesn't tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes they do have the chance to kind of slap your hand or hurt your feeling, and they come back to kind of follow up on you and they kind of curve you down the right path. Okay, so you are a young 64.
67, thanks.
67, that's a nice drop for you, by the way. We in the barbershop, so I acknowledge. Low-key, he kind of got the Tony Dungy cook, bald here, but a fade up on the bottom. It's pretty good cook. You sleek. You in the area of your life where you can work for another 8-10 years if you want, or you be like, you know what, I want to do this, right? I want to do that. I'm going to ask you, at 67, what's your why? A lot of people, when they get to the age there, they're like, I'm done. I've done it all. But then I've seen a few individuals like, man, I'm going to do this until I'm done. And they have this battery. They have this light in their eye where they're never too busy to pick up a phone call. They're never too busy for coffee. But then they're always looking to see what's next. And they typically are empowered by a battery of why. What's yours?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you have any others? I think that for me, I've been really lucky to be where I am because I could be self-guided in a smaller company. I probably wouldn't do well in a large Fortune 500 type company.
Me either.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'd deliver pizzas for it. Yeah. I really do. There's nothing wrong with delivering pizzas because I order a lot of pizzas, and I like that.
Yeah.
The point is, I like, and it's probably one of those letters that my daughters have diagnosed me with, but there is a control thing on controlling your destiny. And so the size of companies I've worked in, I started with a national company. It was actually a publicly traded company. And it was a great experience. I felt like I got another degree. I was there for 5 years. St. Louis, got transferred to Boston, learned a lot. Then I was ready to kind of drill it down to something I could have maybe a little more control over my destiny. And it was never about a salary. It was always about responsibility. So I learned a lot growing up in those, and you kind of ate what you kill, and you the harder you worked, you were rewarded for that. Sometimes not, sometimes. But I think at this point in my career, I've been in construction the construction and design space for a lot. If I'm 67, so I've been in there for 40 plus years, more than 4 decades.
And let me say this, and you break the mold on what a construction person's supposed to be. You got personality, you got swagger, you dress. I mean, most guys construction, they're like, that's kind of.
Talking about my people here.
My bad. Wow, okay.
You can flush a toilet because of these people, and you can build a building. No, but I get exactly where you're coming from. I think the why would be, I'm really cognizant about getting in the way. I think people hang on in certain roles too long. And I think that look, I had great opportunity by hook and crook to lead at a time when I was a lot younger than I am today, to do some things that may have been a stretch for me, but people believed in me and allowed me to do it. But you also have to get out of the way, so that's so people can grow. You know, the organizations. So it would be. The why would be more about passing on what I know.
Yeah.
That applies to today, and that's ever changing. There's still some basics that everybody can learn. Give back to both the organization and the community, and maybe not this role, but support role. And being able to switch from, look, I may not be the head coach, but if I can support the head coach and make them better and get out of the of the limelight and get out of the, it's their turn.
Yeah.
It's their turn. And so I think I'm more nervous about making sure that I'm not in the way, so that someone else doesn't get the same opportunities of growth that I had, and let them do it. And it's gonna look different. So I don't think you run from it. And I have zero interest in. I love recreation. I like time off. I like things like that. But I'm not a go live on a space where I can. It needs to be outwardly. I grew up with again, and I think this goes back to the family unit. You know, my parents they involved themselves in the political process. And here's how. They didn't write big checks to candidates and stuff because they didn't have it, but they worked the polls every day. And they learned about leadership, and they discussed it openly and taught us how to vote and things like that. And civic duty was a big deal to them. Not necessarily being the lead on something, but support. Clean the church. You don't have to be the head of the church committee, but you can be in there cleaning. Everybody has a role, you know, and show up and just do it. So I think for me, it's make sure that you wring out every bit of experience that I have for the benefit of the organizations I currently work for and that I are involved in. Wring it out. Wring it. Use me for that, and then get the heck out of the way for others to go. But so I think I don't even know if I answered your question.
Oh man, you killing it, Mike. Mike, you killing it. This is I'm trying. Listen, I told y'all this podcast is what it's about. It's about making sure everyone understands the why and the story behind who these people are. And you are a powerful person. Now, this is my last question. I have to give a shout out. Me and you have both went through a program that I think has really helped shape Indianapolis for over the last 47, 48 years, however long it is. And that program's called Stanley K. Lacey. I approached you once when we had coffee and we were talking about it. I told you, Mike, I think I'm going for this. And you absolutely spoke into my life and said, Fred, it's one of the best programs and experiences I went through. I didn't know that you went through it until you told me. But then it makes sense. And I went through it, I was like, that's the why. Talk a little bit about why you believe so much in a program for a community like Stanley K. Lacey, and how you feel that can maybe help continue what you strongly believe in terms of your why.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you hats off the Lacey family of seeing that how futuristic and what a gift, right?
What a gift.
It gives people like you and like me an opportunity to get plugged in when maybe we weren't as plugged in.
Absolutely.
But it gives you exposure. And again, back to the mentor-mentee, you had a role to be in. It's one thing to get in SKL, but if you don't give back to SKL, you'll get a little bit out of it, but you won't get back. We can all attend this, and I got to meet the mayor, and I get to meet this. Yeah. It was great. But what I liked about that program was it was a two-way street. You could really get a lot out of it if you put a lot into it. I had a great experience with that, and I think that it's at the time, again, timing's perfect, right? The time of my life that I was involved in that, and you were in class 40 something. I'm not even going to tell you what the number was in my class, but it was, let's say it was south of 20 and a little bit north of 10. But so a long time ago. But I think it's still the same drill. And what a powerful thing to have that many people stay together. Yeah. It wasn't a one-day thing. You get to know each other. Right. You can pick up the phone right now and call anybody in your class.
Absolutely.
Text anybody in your class. Yes. And I feel the same. multiple years later, the same way. I get calls, I touch base with people, and I didn't even forget we were in SKL together and that we did this. But the exposure to our community, especially if you listen and really participate, was really life-changing for me. And it helped me choose where I could plug into the community and do my best.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the whole idea behind the Lacey's family starting this thing.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to see, what the alumni have done. And I know we've talked about it before, but I think it's pretty amazing. Not only here, but elsewhere.
Absolutely.
We had several in our class that left.
Yeah.
Friends that went to Chicago and all over, and still feel comfortable with what they've done there. And I think they learned a lot from it this year. But I'm glad you plugged it, because I think it's an experience that we were very fortunate, both you and I, to get through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks for your time. I'm not going to hold you up.
This is the best.
Absolutely. Everyone.
We need to
check them out
a little bit. Is it good?
Check them out. No, I think it's nice. It kind of reminds me of a dungeon. Yeah. Listen, people can find more information for you and where you what you're doing and on Shield Sexton, right?
Yeah,
that's where you're working out
or whatever, right? Yeah.
And
I'm
see
still
that
employed there. If my fob works today, I'll tell you when I get in there this morning. But it's great. Yeah, it's a pleasure being down here.
Absolutely.
This space is so awesome, and those of you that haven't been here, you have to see it. And this was born out of a loving contribution that Fred has done. Figured out another way to speak to our youth and break down the barriers. And this is an awesome, awesome mission.
I appreciate it.
Great to see you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Dilts, thank you for your time, and thank you for being a part of season 1.